Welcome, everyone. Delighted to have you. We'll be starting shortly. Bear with us. Let people get everybody in from the top of the hour, and we'll start momentarily. And welcome, everyone. We'll start in 1 minute. Delighted to have you. Looking forward to engaging with you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ken Spiro. I'm the president and founder of SchoolSims, and I'm delighted on behalf of the SchoolSims team to welcome you today to our webinar on end of school year, navigating the final stretch. We are delighted to have a guest presenter, Dr. LeAnne Salazar Montoya, who I will introduce momentarily, to help us with navigating this challenging issue. And for those of you who are, LeAnne, if you could move it to the next slide, please. Actually, the next couple of slides. For those of you who are not familiar with simulation, so let me start with this. If you could please, everybody, let's go back one, sorry, LeAnne. We would like everybody to, part of this is, as I'm going to mention in a moment, is about well-being and, the power of this modality to provoke organic conversation, dialogue amongst peers, and that's kind of important in this day and age in terms of communicating and sharing. So let's start out by actually having, since we're all in this together today, if you wouldn't mind putting in chat your name, where you're from, where you're coming from, et cetera, and your favorite color. And we'll speak to that as well. But this way we can get a sense, everybody can get a sense of who's here today as we have the opportunity to both engage in the concepts, but also with each other. So thank you for that. And while you're doing that, LeAnne, if you could forward the slides. So that's us. I think we know who we are, but I will, LeAnne, you can put it on your slide for a minute so people can see who you are, and I'll also introduce you. But one of the things for those of you who are less familiar with simulation, the idea, fundamentally, we know experience is the best teacher. For us, that's the operating principle, and we look to provide an opportunity to have scalable experience, an opportunity to put experience in a box, if you will, so that we can meet the students where they are, whether they're professionals in the field, whether they are aspiring leaders in the field, whether they're students in schools, to meet the students, the participants where they are, so they can have meaningful, authentic experiences to practice making decisions, to practice making mistakes, because the way we learn from experience is not from getting it right, but from making mistakes. And the opportunity to fail forward is a wonderful opportunity that this modality really provides. But when we talk about this idea of end of school year and why we found this compelling, and as you'll see when we open up the sim, this one was done actually in collaboration with the New York City Department of Ed a number of years ago. And the reason why this was a particular challenge, it's not a specific issue that's a challenge, but it's a time of year that's the challenge, which to some degree I think is maybe unique to education from the standpoint of having challenges that are unique to the beginning, to the middle, to the end kind of thing, where you've got all kinds of stuff going on. Everybody's pretty stressed out. Tensions are high, both in the building, in the district, in the community. And so the need to be able to not only make good decisions based on the issue in front of you, but to also navigate the challenging stresses and stressors that not only you experience, but also your staff, is incredibly challenging. So the opportunity to have a modality that not only allows us to practice the decision making in the confines of the issues, but also to do it in a way that provokes conversation, that provokes sharing, that enables a shared experience amongst participants, so that we can actually develop connectedness, which works towards improving well-being, also de-isolating, right? There's nothing more challenging than the isolation that we feel, whether you're a teacher, an administrator, a director, a dean, central office, right? The way the decisions are happening, it's coming to you. You're the point of the spear, so to speak, and it can be incredibly isolating. Anything we can do to de-isolate, to help people realize I'm not alone, that there are other ways of thinking about things, and that I can reach out, obviously is a good thing. So the opportunity to utilize the modality that does both the development and also the focus on well-being is something that we're quite excited about. And with that, I'm delighted to, as you know, just one last thing. Actually, the next one, and these are ones that you can do from a variety of ways in terms of, again, meeting your students where they are. They can be done in person, virtually, synchronously or asynchronously. So again, the importance of being able to provide that opportunity and this multitude of experiences, whether you're leaders, whether your focus is on teachers or counselors, there's an opportunity to engage with problems of practice that are appropriate for the need, for the issue that may be presenting, or the standards that you're focusing on, depending on the nature of the formal or informal learning, but also the opportunity to engage in identifying new opportunities. So if you know something that's going on that you'd love to see in this format, it's something we'd obviously love to speak with you about. So that aside, again, as I mentioned, I'm delighted to share this opportunity to present these concepts and these ideas in the simulation with you, with Dr. LeAnne Salazar Montoya. She is a veteran K-12 educator with a vast array of experience from the classroom to the boardroom as both a superintendent and now serving as an assistant professor at the University of Las Vegas, Nevada, working with aspiring school leaders in Clark County schools. With that, I turn it, and it's been my pleasure to work with LeAnne over the years in terms of her work with the Latino Aspiring Leader work in the Leadership Academy that has been put together by the Four Corners when she was in New Mexico. And delighted to have her here to present to you today. LeAnne?
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I can see we have a really great group with us today, a lot of different backgrounds and experiences. Again, thank you, Ken, for the introduction. We have had some really great interactions over the years. I think that the Sims have been very practical for me, both as a practitioner and now as an instructor at the collegiate level for aspiring leaders. I'm really excited to be able to share with you the Sim today. And kind of just as I reflect on the Sim that we're going to work on today, I want you to take a moment and think to yourself about your personal checklist. What kind of checklist do you have for yourself as the end of year rolls around? Today's Sim has a lot to do with being a school leader and thinking about what end of year means for you. As a school leader, there's so many loose ends that you want to tie up, but at the same time, you're also starting to think about the future and thinking about the coming school year. And so let's think about that for a minute. Give me just a sec. And so in the chat box, think of the first word that comes to your mind as you think about end of year and being a school leader. And as you do that, I'm going to queue up for just a minute our beginning Sim. These Sims, as I mentioned earlier, are really great, especially for those of us who work in smaller school districts at times, and you have fewer resources in your district. For me, I was a school leader, administrator, and superintendent in a more rural school district with not a lot of people to reach out to and to discuss things. And so our Sim today is from the perspective of a first-year principal of an elementary school who is going to be wrapping up her school year. And so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to listen to her for just a minute about getting her school year started, or her school year wrapped up. I'm sorry.
In this simulation, you'll be faced with challenges, make decisions, and experience the consequences of your choices. As a first-year principal of an elementary school wrapping up the school year, you will build a plan to improve academic achievement in the coming year and work through staff assignments to support the plan. At the same time, you will encounter various stakeholders whose needs you will have to consider as you build support for the school-based options needed to implement the plan. Click the next button toward the bottom right to continue.
For those of you in the audience, if any of you have used Sims in the past, just raise your audience hand and let us know how many of you have actually previously used this one. Nice. There's a few of us in the audience who have previously used these.
In this simulation, you'll be faced with challenges, make decisions.
All right. So just real quickly, we will not be able to hit back as we make collective decisions on this particular sim. So just keep that in mind. We need to stick to one of our options and move forward. Just a quick housekeeping regulation there. And then as you can see here, we're coming to the end of the first year as the principal of Parkside Elementary, and the end of the year is about 3 months away. The overall level of stress is fairly high as year-end activities begin to accelerate. Your challenge is to craft a vision for next year, build support for it, and staff it accordingly. So that is our challenge for today as we make selections in today's simulation. Again, before we get started with this, I'm going to click off for a second and click on to a slide and take a second and help think back. And as you make decisions as a school leader or at the collegiate level, what are some of the core values that you center your decision making on? I think we each think about core values as we navigate our way through situations, as we make decisions. What are some of those core values you center your decision making on? And I think we're going to take a minute and put you in a brief breakout room for just a minute so that you could take just 3 minutes and share with a small group. And I do believe Nick is going to help me put you in groups of about 3 or 4 to just talk about core values and how those core values really impact your decision making and give you a lens by which you lead within your schools or as a professor or whatever your role is in your district. Nick, can you help me put them just for a couple of minutes so they can think about this? And we'll see you in about 3 minutes. All right, so I think people are coming back in and we have everyone back. And so let's look at the first sim. I'm gonna play this and then we're gonna put up a poll and we're gonna choose one of these core values.
School leaders make decisions based on core values. Please indicate the core value you feel is most important as it relates to school leadership and decision making as you conclude your first year and look toward your second. Note, you may wish to write down your choice for reference later in the simulation. Choose one of the following options.
All right. So our options, of course, are all children can and must learn. Transparency builds trust. We are in the service of parents and community. And results matter. Teachers are the key to student success. All right. Looks like nobody has chosen one. Oh, here we go. Looks like we're going to lean heavily towards choice A. So as we close this poll, we'll move forward. As you know, we cannot move backwards. We'll go with majority. So
At various points in the simulation, your dashboard, to the right, will give you a sense of how well your choices are mapping to the primary values you selected on the previous screen. You can also get a sense of the overall level of stress in the building and a quick read on the degree of buy-in you've achieved for your plan. Mouse over each of the 3 rows to see their labels. The green and amber dashboard lights for values indicates you are starting out well, but not everyone in the building is receptive. When the dashboard light goes to amber, you've got some problems to deal with, as per stress above. If the dashboard light goes red, you've got significant problems to deal with. You are already in the hole for buy-in, as you have yet to build support for new initiatives.
All right.
As you look to the end of the year, you are beginning to get a sense of the priorities for the next year. You've already seen the need for improvement in math across all grades and shared data with the superintendent. You check email and notice the superintendent has responded.
Uh-oh, we got an email and something from the superintendent.
I wanted to thank you again for a good discussion after my visit last week. Considering your informal assessment data, increasing math skills is clearly an area for improvement. There needs to be a plan in place for improving student outcomes in math. I'd encourage you to consider a school-based option, or SBO, as part of your plan. School-based options allow your school to modify the collective bargaining agreement to better meet the needs of your school community. Please submit your plan to me by the end of the week.
So we have a task emailed to us from the superintendent. And now we have a meeting with it.
Nazreen Shaker is an energetic and enthusiastic first grade teacher. You are impressed with her early childhood skills and hope to help her build on those this coming year. Her specialty is mathematics. She may have her own plans for her assignment for next year.
All right.
Thanks for meeting with me. I really am so proud of my first grade class. They've come so far, and now I know that I'm ready for a new challenge. My specialty, as you know, is teaching math, especially in the upper grades. I know it's a little early to ask, but I'd like to teach 5th grade math next year. Just math. I know I'm still relatively new here, but I hope you'll still honor my request. Give me a chance. Based on my observations, you know what I can do.
So we have a teacher. We are a first-year principal, and these are all the different things coming at us. We have an email from the superintendent. We have a request from a teacher. You know that we're always juggling multi-responsibilities. We're in that role of leading a school.
LeAnne, can I jump in?
On the day of the state math exams, there are many expressions of apprehension on the part of teachers. There is a general lack of confidence in how well students will score after seeing student reactions while taking the test. Several teachers come to you saying it was the hardest test they'd seen. Some report students crying during the test.
So before you go forward, LeAnne, we've had a request and to talk a little bit about the values that the groups discussed in terms of what they came up with and maybe how that might be important in decision making at this stage in terms of the role that values might play in that process.
Sure. All right. So does anybody want to share out loud, or would some of the values that came up and how they're steering the decisions and the choices that we're making? You can unmute yourself and share with us. Or would it be easier to go into another small group and have a discussion? Because I know it can get overwhelming to be in a large group. Go ahead, Dr. Hodge.
Just wondering about getting those values straight at the beginning. If we have some that think chose portion A or option A, and others that chose B, C, D, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, whatever else. If that's not straight, wouldn't that skew the rest of the year or the rest of the planning and the rest of the simulation?
Well, clearly, kind of where I come from in this particular standpoint and working with this sim with my aspiring school leaders, what I find is that you see different types of positionalities and visions that different aspiring leaders have. One thing that I have experienced using these Sims with students and also as a leader myself is that you're never going to have an exact perfect answer no matter what choice you choose. And so it takes me back. I was just talking with Ken earlier, and one of the things that I often use in my intro to leadership courses is we do a personality assessment. Oftentimes I use true colors, and what you see emerge from the choices and the core values that individuals have is a variety of different leadership styles. There really is no one absolute right answer, one absolute wrong answer. It is reflective of true life, and that is that we all come from different backgrounds, different lenses, and we choose to make different selections as we have decision making and we prioritize where we want to move our school. And so having our core values will influence which one of the decisions we make. And so working with a small group like this, as we make the next decision, let's anchor and talk about, when we break up into small group, which core value we selected in the first question and how it's going to influence our second selection, and whether or not we feel that those core values are influencing the choices that we make. I do know that these Sims were selected so that there's no true absolute best answer and no absolute worst answer, but it gives us an actual true reflection on real life, that we all just kind of go with what we know and where we are centered as school leaders. In True Colors, you have the 4 colors. How many of you guys have ever done True Colors? Anybody? Well, in True Colors, there's 4 basic types of leadership values there are. And so people who identify as a gold are very traditional, and they need agendas and they need to have things outlined. It needs to be orderly. It has to be traditional. It's kind of like the center of where they make decisions. People who identify with the color blue when you take the assessment are very emotional based. They think about people, they think about the effect it's going to have, the community, those types of things. People who identify with green are really looking at data, and they want to see the trajectory of what the decision is going to make, what's going to be the overall impact, what influenced where we're at today. And then you have another personality type that's not necessarily it's orange. They're usually former athletes, very competitive. They do not need a schedule. They do not need to know it's going to start at 8 o'clock. They're willing to go on the fly and to be able to handle a task, anything that comes at them. And it's usually a multi-day training. And what you find out at the end is that to make sound decisions, you really need to have people who push on you and who challenge your particular leadership style. So in Sims, when you're able to do it in a small group like this, you can hear the other perspectives and see that you truly need all of the leadership styles and all of the different perspectives to make a decision that works for your community. And what works for your community might not be what works for another community, but really having the discussion and the ability to see the value that each one of us brings to the table and the experiences we have. Because sometimes we need all the time, we need our blue leaders to remind us that everyone walking into our building has feelings, emotions, and the decisions we make are going to affect them. And yet we need the greens because they remind us of the budget and the data and the reporting at the state and all of the important things that we do as school leaders. Our goals help keep us orderly and remind us that there's deadlines and there's dates and there's certain reasons we have done things over time. And the oranges always help us in a clutch when the golds are like, nope, the deadline was yesterday and I'm not going to do it. Your oranges step in and they help you and remind you that they're there to fill in the gap and to help you make critical decisions. And so interwoven in that is our core values, right? We think about whether it's honesty, integrity, all the various different core values that you all have identified. So let's look briefly, and hopefully I can have you guys come together and have a small group discussion in our next selection. So let's look at this one.
As you contemplate the general response to testing and your recent conversation with your superintendent, you consider several options to improve math instruction and raise math scores. You could add an academic intervention coordinator to orchestrate intervention services. You could also add honors math to challenge top performers. You could also move to block programming math classes to provide more time for deeper math exploration. You could also change session time to extend the day for additional math instruction. Professional development could be exclusively focused on math, enhancing the skill of all teachers. You could hire a math staff developer to support teachers as they build those skills. You can't do it all, and you need to be strategic in how you determine which initiatives to pursue together. After considering various options, several strategic groupings emerge, which you may wish to note for reference later. Build on the block. Implement block programming for math. Dedicate all PD to math and create a math staff developer position. Meet students where they are. Create an AIS coordinator position and implement honors. Extend session time to incorporate more math instruction. Add more support. Create 2 positions, AIS coordinator and math staff developer, and implement honors. Beyond that, implementing block math programming and honors math seem like good options. However, they will be insufficient to address your superintendent's concerns. You will have to think of an additional option to get the job done.
All right, so that brings us to our next question. Think about these questions. We're going to break you up into small group, and I'd like you to discuss the options about build on the block, meet students where they are, add more support, and customize option, and bridge that thought while you're in small group. We will pull you in between, but try not to, and you can answer now, and then let's see if your answer changes after meeting with your small group. So if you can help me put them back into their small group, same one, and talk about which one of these options would be best.
LeAnne, they're coming back.
All right, everyone.
All right.
So as a group collectively, it
should
looks
just
like
be
we
a
all
flag.
went with
There you-
B.
there you go.
75% of you chose B. So I'm gonna go ahead and select that for us, and let's see.
What was your rationale for your choice of options?
Does somebody want to share in the chat box or out loud what the rationale was, just briefly,
All
one or
right.
two?
So I am going to be, give me 2 seconds because I can't see it. I'm so sorry. I don't know what
Anybody,
it's doing. Can
anybody?
you see it now? Can you still see it? We can
Yes.
see it. Oh, perfect. Okay.
Dr.
I'm going
Hodge,
to
can you share with
be-
us what your group said?
Just give me 2 seconds.
Sure, I'd be glad to. We're
Thank
just
you.
Something really funny on my side of the.
the two-thirds of us were talking about meeting students where they are, because if we didn't meet them where they are, you know, they could either be bored from the beginning because we're beneath them, or they could be lost from the beginning because we start at a different place. Our third team member got in kind of late, so we kind of explained what we brought her up to date to what was going on here, and that's where we left it.
We were
Awesome,
also
great.
talking in our group about the importance of meeting the teachers where they are. So, you know, the professional development may not need to be the same for all of our teachers. Some of them may have that, like the first grade teacher has, that strength in mathematics. We need to make sure that we would give all of our teachers, meet our teachers where they are too.
Thank you.
going
Sorry,
into the
my
topic
mouse
on the
was not
background.
working. I apologize for that, y'all.
Study is extremely
All right,
important.
so now on to our next prompt.
From the American Association of School Administrators.
Now that the end of the year is almost here, the PA wants a graduation ceremony for pre-K students with cap and gown. The pre-K program was newly established this year, and while a graduation ceremony is a recent tradition for kindergarten, you had not considered it for pre-K until just now. Trying to fit this in with everything else going on will be a challenge. There are already many activities planned for the end of the term. The pre-K teachers are feeling stressed, and some feel there shouldn't be a graduation at all. Determining what the needs are for a graduation event feels overwhelming at the moment. One more thing to add to your to-do list.
All right.
You consider yourself fortunate to have Mrs. Molina as the union chapter leader. She is experienced and knows how to build support for your plan and SBO. She stops by your office.
Well, the end of another year approaches, and I know you need a math plan. As you pull your plan together, I want to support you in any way that I can. The chapter here at the school is very strong. They staff take voting on SBOs very seriously. The contract is there for a reason, after all. As I said, I want to support you, and when it comes to scheduling preps, put me down for last period next year.
Such as the continuation of the patriarchal system, which you see.
Thinking as a practitioner, I mean, how important are those relationships with the union and the people who are an integral part of the stakeholdership of when we make decisions? That is part of this sim, is she's embedded in the sim.
We are running out of time to nail down the details of the end of term party. Last year we lost our location because it wasn't booked in time. No one wants to see that happen again. Believe me, this is one case where the devil is very much in the details. Also, did I understand correctly that we are going to attempt to fit in a graduation ceremony for the pre-K students as well? We really need to get on top of the planning for these events.
Thinking about this sim, I really think about what it was like to be a practitioner and the mounting number of decisions that we make at the end of a school year. How many of you guys in the audience can relate to these decisions? Few of you? Think Dr. Hodge, definitely, okay. How important would some of these be if you could do some of these sims with your first year principals or with your aspiring school leaders? This has been a really important tool for me to be able to use as a small district leader. I apologize, y'all. My mom is on hospice and she's in the background, so I apologize for that. But these are important decisions that we need to make, and this sim is really an instrument that can be useful. So here we go. We're at that end of year decision making, and we got another guest.
The father of Daniel Tillman, a very cute and precocious 4th grade student, stops by. Mr. Tillman tells you he does not want Daniel in Mr. Pierce's class next year. After asking around, he's gotten a sense that the work is too easy for Mr. Pierce's students. He insists that Daniel needs a teacher who will challenge him, and he asks for your assurance that Daniel will not be assigned to Mr. Pierce next year.
How many times did this happen to us? I remember being a school principal and having a number of Mr. Tillmans come in, and that's a critical decision, right? That we have to make. We have to be able to decide, how do you prioritize that? Who do you assign them to?
How will you respond to Mr. Tillman?
So how are we going to respond to Mr. Tillman? Let's talk about the choices, and then we will break up in small group again, and let's talk about how or why.
How will you respond to Mr. Tillman?
I'm so happy you came in to see me. We are just at the beginning of the process. I'll have a better idea later on. I appreciate your passion. The poll is in my reading view. Hold on. So thanks for coming in, and then redirecting it to our assistants. So you can think about this individually, and then again, let's take 3 minutes and put them in breakout rooms to discuss which one they chose and why. Because I think the fruit of these simulations are actually in the small group conversations that we have, and being able to hear the multiple perspectives and the decisions that we make. And again, how our moral compass and our core values really direct the decision choices that we make. And sometimes just listening to one of our peers helps us see another perspective and helps us think about other options that we may have chose or could have chose. Again, if you can help me put them for just 3 minutes into a breakout room.
An assistant, would that have been something you would have gone with?
Not necessarily. I think it was something I thought about because the guidance counselor might have a great response thinking out loud, right, to give to the parents as to why or why not a student might be transferred. I think that's probably usually a common choice. I really steered away, quite honestly, from the one that said it's an administrative decision, even though that was the most popular choice for this group, because I'm not a big fan of the top down, it's my way or no way, but really to validate what the parents are requesting. I think of myself as a parent. And so when I was thinking about the third choice, I really thought that I would be really leaving sad or upset or felt like I was unheard if I went in and they just said, this is an administrative decision and we're not even going to take your thoughts into consideration. But that was just me. I can see that our group really thought that was the best choice. And so we still have a lot in breakout rooms, but I think the value in having the simulations is the richness in the conversations that we have with one another, so that somebody could be the yin to my yang and explain to me why that was the best choice for them. We had 57% of our participants saying that was the best choice for them. So would love to hear somebody chime in on that for me. Anybody that's in this group?
Our group talked about the fact that, you know, shifting the conversation from personalities and names of teachers to what do you believe your child needs is really the important discussion to have, because you really never know for sure who those teachers are going to be in the fall, especially with some of the turnover that we are experiencing currently. So it's really important to get that conversation with the parent shifted over to what do you believe your child needs?
Yeah, you know, communication, consideration, conversation, all the C's, they're really important. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really important perspective. Anybody else want to share from your group? This is the richness of the Sims, is sharing out loud and thinking about different perspectives. Remember, there's no right, there's no wrong answer. These are real life decisions that our aspiring leaders, our practicing principals, school administrators in training, these are decisions we're having to make. And all of these things are on our plate at the same time. All right. We're a quiet group. You're right, Ken. I would love to hear you guys engage a little bit more. This is the importance of this, and I love to hear your perspectives. So we're going to go with the third one because that's what this group chose. And it was the thanks for coming in. And let's see what the Sim has to say.
The gap in the literature does not completely explore that concrete ceiling.
Mr. Tillman was not satisfied with your response and took it upon himself to call the superintendent's office to make the case. Of course, it was kicked back to you for action.
All right, so we got to call into the superintendent, and now we got to make another critical decision. Happens often, especially in communities where it's tight knit and there's that comfort level of calling the superintendent or a board member.
You hear from the maintenance staff that the school parking lot will be replaced with a playground during the summer after repairs are made to the building. The result is that summer school will need to be held in another location. You'll have to discuss this at the next PA meeting, along with possible changes to bus schedules.
All right.
During a cabinet meeting, the AP reminds you that the preference sheet needs to go out tomorrow. How will you address creating and distributing the preference sheet?
All right, so we have some more choices. Take a minute and read these to yourself. Then the poll will go out. You'll select one. And in the chat box, tell us why you chose the one you chose. Let's see if we can get some more engagement and some different perspectives by chatting in the chat box.
For example, white male having an interview with a black.
I'll give you about 2 minutes to type a response, make a selection, and take some time to read the different responses. Again, I'm asking you guys to truly participate in the chat box because this is what makes the Sims so engaging and rich. I know when I do these activities with my aspiring leaders at UNLV, in my intro to leadership courses, it really has some great discourse where people are able to hear one another's perspectives, when they're able to have rich conversations and to think about different aspects of the decision-making process and why you might be influenced one way or another. And sometimes people's decisions are completely turned around based on what they hear from their peers. So would love to see what you guys can put in the chat box. Would love to see which one you chose and why. Or things that we need to consider. Anybody want to share out loud? We have a couple of coming into the chat box. We're a little more split on this one. The further I notice that we get into the Sims, the less of a collective decision we're making. The first decision we had to make, we were about 80% all on the same wavelength. The second one, we got to 57%. And on this third major decision we're making, we're at a pretty even split almost at 38, 25, and 25. So it looks like we're starting to think more critically about which selection to make. So to move forward, because we only have about 10 minutes to wrap this up, I want to make sure we are able to have some dialogue and discussion about the sim and how this can benefit you as a school leader, working with your staff, working with your teachers. I think sometimes our teachers, or even when I was a teacher, I didn't think from the balcony and think about how certain decisions affected the entire organization. And when you're able to use these in professional development or in just different prep courses with your staff, professional development, PLCs, different areas, having those conversations can be critical in thinking about the multiple perspectives as practitioners making decisions. So we're going to go ahead with 2 because this is where 38% of you are at.
Some teachers see this as status quo and are disappointed that the preference sheet is not specific. They've heard rumors you're planning changes. By not sharing your plan with them, you lose an opportunity to build support.
And this study has taken place, and
All right. Did that surprise anyone?
in California.
Please use the chat box. We're a shy group today.
In the state of
Mrs. Molina stops by to discuss the plan for next year. You look forward to hearing her perspective.
slide, it gives you how many Black women people could.
You know, changing session time is going to be a hard sell for teachers and for parents. A new schedule throws everyone off track. You'll really need me to help you get the staff on board with this preference sheet and with the SBO that I know you're going to need. It's pretty important that the teachers are with us so that they can convince the parents. It would also help if you could increase the per session hours budget and restore the teacher's lounge. And you can help me by giving me less period prep next year.
Food for thought.
For African American person, you have.
Now that the preference sheet is out and the subject of discussion, you can expect to be lobbied by teachers to express their needs and desires. If you haven't already, take a look at your dashboard indicators. Do you see movement from when it was introduced? What choices have you made that seem to influence the dashboard markers?
So now we're getting.
Yeah, if
Hmm,
you
do you
if you
start-
click on the eye, if you click on the eye up there, that'll highlight what they are. So the values, stress, and buy-in.
Purposeful, I always say that word. wrong.
All right, we got some red on there. So we're making some critical decisions.
I originally.
Any feedback from anyone that you'd like to share?
colleagues.
All right, then we're gonna hear from Mr. Pierce.
Also handing out recruitment flyers at national.
Mr. Pierce is a 5th grade teacher who has been at the school longer than almost anyone. As you meet with him, you're reminded that this is the teacher Mr. Tillman complained about. He wants to meet with you to discuss his place in your plan.
Participants will complete a.
I wanted to let you know that I strongly support your plan to improve math performance. I've been at this school longer than most of the staff, and I've been teaching 5th grade for 10 years. I've seen the level of motivation on the part of my students get lower and lower. They just don't seem to care. And it seems they hardly learn anything before getting to 5th grade. I already see that this crop of 4th graders will be woefully unprepared for next year. I'm really feeling that I'm wasted on these kids. I want to teach students who want to excel. I want to make more of an impact by teaching honors next year. And I wanted to let you know before anyone else sets their sights on honors.
The main one, which is.
Wow, how many of you guys have had Mr. Pierce in your schools?
Where you are.
There's a Mr. Pierce in quite a few schools. And so how we handle Mr. Pierce, yep, I see the thumbs up. Really impacts the decisions we make.
And then the question kind of.
As Mr. Pierce leaves your office, your secretary reminds you that you have a meeting with Mrs. Reynolds. Her daughter Jessica will likely not be promoted this year.
Uh-oh. So another major decision. Let's hear this.
My daughter is failing for the year, despite her hard work and efforts. When I see the hours she spends on her homework at home, well, she tries so hard, but her teacher, he hasn't done his part. If he actually tried to teach my kid, she'd be doing okay. Please consider these circumstances. My daughter should be promoted because she tried so hard. And we already paid her senior dues and dress and bought a ticket for her grandmother to come for graduation. Besides, we have too much planned for her to go to summer school. We've already spent quite a bit on tickets we've already purchased for our summer family trip.
Critical conversations that we see often. So as you can see, we have multiple, I'm going to stop sharing here for just a minute in respect of your time. And I would like to see if we can engage in another short conversation with one another. So let me bring you to the slide I have for you. As leaders, we make critical decisions. A recent article in the Educational World says that we usually have 4 options of involvement in decision-making. We can decide alone, we can seek participation and input, we can seek collaboration, or we can let others decide. So that terms these 4 decision-making in autocratic, participative, collaborative, and laissez-faire, respectively. A wise leader uses participative and collaborative strategies for all important decisions. And for me, as a practitioner, this really gave me an opportunity to have a conversation around the multiple perspectives. They also said in this article that there are 5 factors that we use to decide on the level of involvement. So these 5 are time, staff interest in the decision, staff expertise, the importance or need for high quality decision-making, and the degree or need for buy-in or support of the decision. So as we were going through these Sims, likely in the back of your head, these were probably things you were subconsciously thinking about as you were making your selections. So for me, these Sims have really been useful as a practitioner and as a professor who uses them to prep my aspiring leaders. So think about the previous slide and this current slide, and I'd like to put you in one last breakout before Ken sends us home with a message. And we have experienced this Sim, and it's allowed you to be participatory and to make some group decision-making. But as a school leader, when you think about, I must learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, how does this statement make you feel? And how might a Sim assist you and your team grow professionally? How could you embed this type of activity in your day-to-day professional development, PLCs, training, preparation, in helping you to work to see multiple perspectives and to make better and more sound decisions? I think you're a little more talkative when we put you in small groups. So this is our last small group, and then Ken will close us up. So one last time, it's been a pleasure. I'll see you guys shortly.
Sorry about that. Anybody want to share? Actually, go back up. There you go. We would like to thank you for your participation today. Love to chat with you further about Sims. And again, when we navigate in the context, we do find that we can't always quite get to the end of the sim, where actually there would be the feedback report. But that is something, if you're interested in seeing the rest of the sim, please let us know. But in the meantime, we are happy to offer make a special offer for those of you who are here to get a discounted access to subscription to the simulations for the coming time period or year. If you are interested, please feel free to use the QR code and be in touch with us. We're very interested in your feedback, both in terms of webinars you might like to see moving forward. We are looking to do one coming up in the next month, relating to school security from a counseling perspective, and we'll be doing that with our partners at the University of Indianapolis. And again, dealing with a security issue, as that is obviously something that is particularly important in schools these days. Look for the announcement that's coming out. We will stick around if anybody has comments, questions. I'm happy to engage with you. But LeAnne, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to have the opportunity to hear your insights, as well as the facilitation of the sim, and again, to continue our work together. And I'll open it up to anybody who'd be interested in speaking. Please feel free to unmute and chime in, and happy to stay on. But in the meantime, certainly wishing you all well on your end of years, and that things close out well, whether it's in your semesters, in your school years, etc. So thank you all for your participation, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future.